Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speed here, and today we're going to be watching SUMAIL's Chaos Knight, paying attention to his recent performance against Team Liquid, and talking about why this hero might actually be much better than people think. In particular, I'm definitely a fan of Chaos Knight against a lot of the cheese meta heroes, and I obviously think OG is as well. A couple examples of this are Brood and Razor, right? These heroes are very heavy single target damage heroes that can be very quite annoying if you can't burst them, but CK completely removes that problem. So I thought it was a genius pick from OG. I'm going to talk about the gameplay of SUMAIL and how he optimizes it, and let's get into it. But before we do, I also want to say that I will be doing a full replay analysis of game number 2 of the series. This is game 1. We'll be focusing only on SUMAIL, but I'm going to be doing a full game and draft analysis of game 2 over on the website. So if you want to get that content, and you feel like you're missing out, it's because you are! You are missing out! You're missing out on a lot of videos, actually a ton of videos, that simply will never come here to YouTube. So if you haven't signed up already, you need to click the link down below, give it a shot, you can trust your boy Speed. When have I led you wrong? Alright? Everything I've ever told you, like Veno Jungle. Have you ever lost a game as Veno Jungle? Probably not! Because I provide you with the best tips, the best heroes, and the best roles, and the best everything, and especially on the gameleap website. Okay. Getting ahead here, this laning stage ends up being a little bit boring, but I do want to talk about a couple of adjustments he makes in the moment that I think most people wouldn't even realize are adjustments. So first one here is he's casually laning, just getting CS, getting denies, and Taiga on the Hoodwink misses the bushwhack. Now, Chaos Knight has one major problem in my opinion as a hero. That is, he doesn't have proper range creep secure. You can use your stun, right? That's a decent amount of damage. You can throw it directly at the creep, and you can also throw it at the enemy hero and then go for the CS, but it's a little bit clunky compared to other spells such as like Troll's Nuke, as often it is a huge portion of your mana pool, and it feels very bad to just casually throw your stun like that, as it kind of opens up for the enemy team to potentially go on you, as then you're missing a spell. But nonetheless here, he kind of walks up and goes for it anyway. You'll see in a second he goes for the range creep, and honestly the reason's very simple. Well, there's two reasons. Number one, massive wave. OG has a very severe creep advantage here, right? 3 creeps to the none in this case. And most importantly, Brood just doesn't really do anything at level 1. And it is a very important distinction to make. Because for instance, if this is a Slardar, then you'd have to be a lot more careful about walking up to a range creep as a half HP hero. Where against Brood at level 1, it's just like, okay, whatever. You know, it really is like that. And so he can play a lot more aggressive. In fact, he even pulls in the Brood here, reducing the armor of the Brood inside of a creep wave, stunning Brood on the creep wave. And that's the biggest value you can get as CK. Anytime an offlaner is getting chased by a creep wave, that is when you want to pull them in and stun them, as that's how you're going to optimize the armor reduction. Now, at the 7-minute mark, SUMAIL dies. He ended up getting ganked by the mid-Mars, and it is what it is, right? Sometimes that's just how it goes. But, now what should he do? A lot of people would actually end their game here. By one decision, their game would, be completely thrown away. You might be saying, well, Speed, what is that decision? Well, SUMAIL, just based on his intuition and the fact that he just died to a level 5 Brood, should tell him that the Brood is about level 6. And now, because Brood is about level 6, what happens? CK goes from a hero that's pretty good against Brood, you actually man up quite well, to unplayable. Because you don't have any spider clear. And Wyvern can't clear the spiders either, right? At least not the big spiders, effectively. And, so he just leaves. And this is key. A lot of people, they don't think about the offlaner enough. Guys, you have to look at the offlaner's level constantly and adjust your gameplay accordingly. If you've been laning against Brood for 7 minutes straight and it's been going well, but Brood is about to hit 6, you have to adjust just to level 6. Level 6 is the major timing in Dota for like 90% of heroes, right? And so in this clip instead, he ends up ganking top. You can see it nets him a Razor kill, and most importantly, really just a place to farm. Brood doesn't want to TP top, because if Brood TP's top, then OG can collapse on the Brood and basically prevent her from getting any substantial amount of spiders. The Timber could basically support CK for as long as needed in the top lane and make Brood have a bad game. Now, unfortunately, it's like a bit of a tough CK game. He doesn't have some great place to lane. Razor is definitely a CK counter in the early game, but that's why he's just going to have to play defensive and make things work until he can come online later on. Next up, I love what he does here. He's against the Razor, right? Very unplayable matchup, guys. What should you do in unplayable matchups? Just in Dota in general. When you're laning against a hero you can lane against, you pull. That's exactly what he does. Goes over to the side camp. But you know how many safe laners actually pull? It's like none of them. Guys, I know you don't pull. I know, and don't tell me, oh yes I do, because you did it once. Do you do it reliably every game you have to? Probably not. And then you end up in situations where you can't play, and instead of saying, oh, maybe I could have pulled, you say, where's my supports? Where's my team? I can't play the game. Yes, you can. You just forgot that you could pull. He actually even ends up griefing the pull a little bit here. You do have to be a little bit weary of this. If you kill the creep that the your creeps are aggroed to on the way back, and it makes this like small gap. Like, it's crazy that Dota works like this, but if there's like this small gap and they're out of the aggro range of these creeps, right, from here to here, then you can just lose the pull. And, you know, it still ends up making it where the wave is at least a little bit further back, but you can see that SUMAIL's like, oh, yikes, and just starts farming the neutral camp, because he still doesn't want to walk up until his team comes. Now, I love what his team does. I think OG is just, you know, they're still, even though they've been struggling a little bit, they're still obviously some of the best players in the world. And what they do here is they know Razor's going to play ultra aggressive. Why? Because that's what Razor frickin' does. That's what Razor does, especially if you know he maxed out his W, which I'm sure OG does. They keep track of that type of stuff, right? Like, how much is he actually sapping? Oh, he maxed out W? Okay, that means he's going to play aggressive in lane. If Razor maxes out the W, he's not going to jungle. You're not going to jungle with the maxed out W. That's certainly not true, and so you gank the people, right? You gank people like this, right? He knows the Razor's going to look to potentially play pretty aggressive, even though that's not really even what happened here. It ends up just being a really nice gank. And the main thing I wanted to point out about this clip is SUMAIL's awareness, right? You can see that a lot of the time, a play next to the tier 1 here would be a very bad idea. Even Saksa, like this play from Saksa looks relatively low skill if you take out the puck. But that's the thing, puck's here. And so diving a full HP Razor with the Oracle behind him is typically a really bad idea, but obviously it ends up working out. They get the nice ulti, a good stun, 3 points in the stun, and it ends up being a nice kill. And one thing I'd like to say about that clip as well that makes it even more advanced as he gets ganked, is that if you're playing safe lane and you can't lane anywhere, you have to tell your team to gank. You have to tell them. And the first thing you should think about is the pull. As I talked about, the pull is the easiest solution without having to force your team to rotate, right? Especially if they don't want to. But if that's not an option anymore, the gank is your next best. Moving on, I love this next sequence from SUMAIL. He decides that he's going to jungle. Isn't really a good place for him to go, which I kind of understand. Brood's bottom, can't go against Brood. Razor's still Razor. Honestly, you're not even that good against Mars. It's not a good CK game early game, which is it's an important distinction. They picked this hero, and you might be saying like, oh, but Speed, I thought you said you love the pick. I do love the pick, but later on, you know, early game, he's kind of got to make things work. So he pops his ultimate to jungle. Recommend you do the same thing. If you do have to jungle, which hopefully you don't, you really want to try to be in a lane as CK. Usually you can, to be honest, but if you can't, you should pop your ultimate to jungle and then be looking for engagements. For instance, a mid dive ends up happening, and this is exactly what you want to do as CK, right? You want to jungle if you have to, only if you have to, and then show up to mid dives or any tower dive if it happens to be near to you, if possible. And that's going to allow you to then get a lane, right? The only time you can get a lane in these awful games where you can't actually, you know, get one alone is if a fight happens and then no one can actually contest you because they're all like half HP. And yeah, I'm not going to say nearly off cooldown, but pretty freaking close to it. He's popping his ultimate. And that's because, once again, he just knows he needs to get to the late game. Liquid has picked a very obvious team comp of we're going to try to run at you and basically force the early game. Right? They have a Brood, a Razor, and a Mars. This is their tricore. They don't got an Animage or a Nago or a TB. They don't want to go late game. Not that they can't go late game at all. Their hero skill, okay. But they don't go late game as well as a CK does, right? CK, when he hits that timing that I've been talking about, pops off. And so they need to force the fights. And therefore, even with Phantasm, it's pretty awkward for him to just, like, consistently show up to engagements. Can he do it? Yes. In fact, he even does a bit of a smoke gank here. I think the smoke gank is reasonable, though, because he just cleared out the triangle. There wasn't anything to farm in the triangle. And so instead of just, like, walking top to farm, he can actually walk top to gank. It's a little bit risky, honestly. It's under tier 2, they didn't have vision of a few heroes, most importantly the Oracle, who can make the save. But I like the idea here. Next up, he's going to buy a Halberd into a Blink Dagger. I think the Halberd's mostly for the Razor. It's a good game to have evasion. Most of the enemy team's damage is going to come from, you know, spiders or Razor right clicks. But moving on, then he buys a Blink. Reason being is he has to be able to get on to either the backliners or the Razor. And against this team comp, it can be very hard to do that. Mars Arena and even just Plasma Field can create these barriers where it's very hard to get the jumps you want. I also think that his main target is most likely going to be the Oracle, so that he can actually burst the Oracle, right? Razor is going to have tanky items. He has almost almost 3k HP, right? 2.5k and a Dragon Scale. And so bursting him is very unlikely. Therefore, SUMAIL wants to jump other targets. And against these save type of heroes like Oracle, and just, even Hoodwink, right? These backline annoyance heroes, a Blink Dagger on CK is absolutely fantastic. You do still need to buy BKB though. Okay, moving on into the next fight. He was pushing in bottom and a fight engages. Ends up TPing in, and this is actually pretty okay for CK. You might be thinking like, am I not a frontline hero, Speed? Don't I just want to be on the frontline? Nah, you don't. You really don't. CK, unless you have like some stupid amount of farm, you're like 8-0, and you have a heart by now, maybe you can frontline then. But in a game like this, where they can just suck your damage and probably make you half HP before you even get your ulti off, no, you don't want to, right? You don't want to, because then your illusions just get cleared too easily. And so, yeah, he's going to clean up the fight. Seb can be the one to frontline, which is much more optimal. And here, honestly, when I watched this clip the first time, I actually thought to myself, I don't like this jump. I don't like the Razor jump. But the reason why it's okay here is for whatever reason, which we'll look into, but SUMAIL jumps the Razor, and it forces the Razor BKB, right? He obviously doesn't want to get stunned, because in that case, SUMAIL actually might kill him if he gets a 4-second stun. Ends up getting Razor cursed, and now SUMAIL has to kite out. Notice one thing here. Sends his illusions in, not his main hero. Why? Because the main hero just wants to play around Reality Rift. You don't want to get stuck. You don't want to get linked, right? You don't want to get even just gone on by Brood. And so instead, this patience here is very key. He's going to wait it out, tracking behind, making sure he stays in distance of the W, and then picks up the kill. On top of that, it is important to note that the Puck was zoning out the backline. If Puck wasn't doing it and Timber wasn't doing it, maybe he would have to do it. But in this case, they were, so he doesn't have to. And I think that's why he goes on the Razor. He notices that his team's going on the backline, so he shouldn't as well. Otherwise, the Razor would do what? Rampage the backline. The Razor would probably kill the Wyvern and mess with maybe the line if Lion's in the back as well. So getting into this fight, we're going to once again see, honestly, I even like, my first instinct on his jump is like not good. Like I didn't like it, but let's see what he does. So he pops his ulti, wants to go for the Hoodwink. Unfortunately, his blink wasn't up yet, and by the time it is up, he just decides to throw a stun at the Razor. I think he wants to protect No Tail, sort of like he did in the last fight. He's putting a pretty heavy emphasis on basically defending his backline heroes, which I think there's some legitimacy to here, especially with Oracle being dead. That's your #1 target if possible, but that's not the case. I think Razor's #2, Hoodwinked isn't too bad as well, but unfortunately gets caught in the Mars arena. Another thing is a bit of a side note, is he actually got his bottle from Thompson. He got Thompson's bottle and took an illusion rune. Huge fan of this, because the illusions that CK gets actually still work with the Reality Rift, and it's really powerful. Sort of like Meepo, right? You can still poof to illusions. Ends up getting used up, and things weren't looking too good here. He was half HP, but obviously you can't panic. He pops the illusions, buys a little bit of space, and then goes on the Razor, knowing that the Razor TP is down, and the illusions actually body block and trap the Razor. A little bit fortunate there, but he picks up the kill, and now just has to man up. Kites out, once again sending his illusions in. You can see this micro is top tier, even though it's not even that hard. You're probably like, Speed, he's just sending the illusions in and running away with his hero. Well, maybe you're not thinking that. Maybe you don't know how to micro at all. If you don't know how to do this, it's actually quite simple. You just go to your settings, you find the hotkey that is select all other units. This is all of your units, all of your heroes that aren't you, right? All of your units that aren't you will go in. For me, it's G. So when I'm playing Prophet and I want a body block, I just select my hero with T, I start auto attacking, and then I click G, and it will micro only my treants, and I block back and forth. And with CK, obviously you're just gonna click G. Well, at least for me in this case, I'm gonna click G. I'm gonna click my units onto whatever I need to. That's gonna hit, and I can continue to play the backline. That actually allows SUMAIL not to commit his blink too early, continue to go on the Oracle. Then when he sees Boxy gonna cast a W, he can get out and dodge it. And yeah, just an expertly played fight by SUMAIL. I definitely feel like maybe his initial jump could have been a little bit better. It was typically when you're playing CK and you buy Blink, which you do want to buy almost every single game in my opinion, if not every game, you want your initial Blink to result in a kill. Obviously that can't be a guarantee, but you hope for that. And now as we get more towards the late game, even though it's only 30 minutes in, SUMAIL's now hit his point of critical mass. He's got the cleave talent, he's level 20, that gives him Reality Rift Pierce's spell immunity, which is a nutty talent, by the way, right? It just makes this Razor, who could usually kite him out, not that good at kiting him out. And so yeah, these are the talents I recommend you take. 5 all stats, 35% cleave, which by the way, was a huge buff to carry CK. You might be saying, oh, strength looks great. It does look great, and it is a solid talent, but Cleave, having an ability to farm and push out waves on CK when you usually just don't unless you have illusions, is just great. It's so powerful. And then yeah, the spell immunity is really nice. And at level 25, I generally recommend the Phantasm duration unless the enemy team has a very easy time killing your illusions. Like, for whatever reason, no matter how tanky you are, they just kill them. Maybe they have like a Bruise Split and Black Hole and Ravage, and it's just like team fight AoE damage central. Then you can take the 10% Chaos Strike chance, which is your crit chance, and try to blow people up, right? That would make sense. But getting into the late game, this is when he's hit his point of critical mass, and typically when you get to this point, pretty late game, you just want to turn on your armlet, pop your ulti, blink in, and kill the first person you see. Obviously, if you can jump multiple different targets, you should still jump to people you can basically guaranteed insta-kill, but Razor hits a really nice flank here. Once again, for like the millionth time, he's going to go on the Razor in an attempt to protect this backline. He quickly realizes that, yeah, even though he can pierce BKB with the spell immunity, he still can't stun through spell immunity, so you're not going to kill him right away. Instead, he's going to look for Insania. Insania already ulted himself, so he's like, okay, that's not too good of a target. Instead, we'll burst Taiga, who can obviously reinitiate. Hoodwink is a very in-and-out hero, and he's going to continue to pursue. Then finds the Oracle. The Reality Rift pulls the illusions in as well, and it's an absolute disaster for Team Liquid. Yeah, but it was a great fight. By the way, that was a sick Lotus from Seb. I don't know how he timed that, but he did. And yeah, just another one fight. Hits a 3-second stun, pops the BKB. Unfortunately, Razor does counter you when you don't have Phantasm, like he does to any other right-click hero that doesn't have units. And yeah, it's going to be about all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you see the power of splitting the map, the power of spamming your illusions to farm in this hero, and most importantly, not running in and hitting towers. One thing I'd like to note about this game is how many times he walked up to a tower, siege, and hit it. Now, I know you guys didn't watch the game full through like I did, but still, the answer is 0. If you are playing CK, unless, as I said, you are like 13-0 and you cannot die no matter what, which is very uncommon in Dota, do not siege towers. You're not a siege hero. I know you're a carry, and therefore everyone's gonna think you're supposed to do that, but don't. Wanna know why? Because then, by the time you pop Phantasm, as you've gone on, I'm assuming, because you're hitting a tower, your illusions are gonna be half HP. And then you're gonna jump like a Timbersaw, because a Timbersaw is gonna be going on you, or a Tidehunter. They're not gonna die, and you're gonna end up doing nothing in the fight. Don't fall into that trap. Control the map, look for pickoffs, look for Roshan, and play the game that way. But nonetheless, thank you guys so much for watching. Eventually, they're just going to look to go high ground, find a pickoff, smoke, something like that, you know. Actually, no, let's watch it. Let's do it together. And so yeah, here we are 34 minutes into the game. He's going to find another illusion rune. I think he didn't really know how to bottle it. He didn't know what he really wanted to swap out, but finds an illusion rune, and let's see what they do. He's going to hit his small camp. Wow. Small camp. Why? Because he doesn't want to go high ground right now. Definitely not. They are going to look to push in the mid wave. Funny enough, Liquid ends up going for a smoke gank. I think they know that OG is just going to choke them in their base and look for a pickoff if they aren't careful. So instead, SUMAIL and the boys are going to wait for a fight like this. Obviously, the fight comes very early, so he didn't really have to wait much at all. But yeah, fight breaks out. He's going to drop his BKB for the heart. Ends up getting another body block trap onto the Razor, which is kind of a big reason why, you know, these illusion runes plus Reality Rift talent is so OP. If they don't have phase boots, you can actually just trap them with BKB, and then the BKB is just completely useless. And yeah, that's how the fight goes. By the way, you really need mana on this hero, so make sure you're buying Clarities and Mangoes if you need them. Alright, that's all for today's video, as they GG out. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you're inspired to play CK. Definitely try to pick it into teams that don't have too much illusion clear, but if they do have illusion clear, buy a Blink Dagger, play the outside of the fight, and ask your team to smoke gank so that you do not have to walk in and pop illusions at half HP and then get focused after you spawn them. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one, and I'm out. Peace! And that's all, but remember, before you leave, come on, before you tune out, subscribe to the gameleap website where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace.